Welcome to The People's View, a program dedicated to discussing local, state, and national issues and their effect on the American people. The People's View provides a platform for state representatives and national figures to present their viewpoint. Whether it's social, economic, or financial topics, you'll hear it on The People's View.
Hello, this is Representative Carl Seidel. Welcome to the People's View. My co-host, Representative Peter Silva, is now going to be our guest, the new majority leader for the New Hampshire legislature. Welcome aboard, Peter. Congratulations again.
Good to be on the other side of the seat over here for a change.
Yeah, how about that? Now you have to answer all the questions.
Yep.
Okay, so I don't know where we start, but let's talk about what you want to do as new majority leader. What are you going to be doing, and how different is it going to be from the old majority leader?
Well, as you know, Carl, there's not a lot of time left in this session, but I think the key to do is to make sure that we stay together as a unit. And you know, you were there yesterday. You saw it. That just for some reason, you could just sense almost like there was a breath of fresh air. I'm not saying it's because of me. I'm saying it's because I think the process was handled properly. For the people who don't know, as you know, we elected our leader for the first time this time.
Right.
It's never been done. And I think that maybe the upper leadership doesn't like it as much, but I think the caucus likes it a lot. And that's one of the key things that they're going to probably want to maintain, because, as you know, we don't know who's going to make it back next time, and you get a good idea, but you don't know all of them. So my goal is going to try to be to make sure we can stay together as a team, especially this coming Wednesday, and we can pass some of these CACRs. There's a lot of important legislation left to do that.
Definitely, but you're right. We did feel like a group that came together. We did what the right thing was, and everybody seems to be happy and move forward. Now we have to finish up our agenda, and we have some real important things next week.
Well, most immediately, we're going to start this week. You'll be getting the phone calls with, you know, the four CACRs that are left, which we should probably go through them. You have CACR 26, which is more of a judge, court type of. You just taking some back of the power of the courts that just have a little too much of it. You'll see the theme on that. There's a CACR 6, which has to do with property taxes, and then of course income tax. And 13 to do away with ever having income taxes. And the last one, the big one, is 12, which is the quote-unquote Claremont decision reversal. And that's going to be the one that's tough, because it's just, there's the classic thing we've dealt with all year, which is part of the things that aggravated me in the beginning, is we need to deal with this different factions. You know, as we saw with voter ID, which made a huge, we probably should talk about that in a little bit, a huge jump this past week, or yesterday. But I think that if we worked on earlier in the session of getting people to understand, to do more seminars, to say to them, look, if you go for 100% every single time, you're probably going to come away with 0. And the Democrats are very good at that. Just going, they kind of like do the sneak attack. They deal a little bit this year, a little bit next year, a little bit next year. Next thing you know, you got gay marriage. And I think, not that I want to, you know, give them any credit for their strategy, but that's some things we have to be willing to give too, you know, and I think that's what we've got to work on.
Well, that one was the one that was really wordsmithed to death.
Yes.
How did you manage to come to some kind of agreement with the final wording?
I wasn't on the committee, but I think it just came down to the fact that once the governor agreed to go along with it, which is a huge thing.
Yes.
A lot of that comes from his office. So all the ins and outs, I can't really tell you that, because I wasn't in the meetings. It's almost boring in a way when it's laborious.
After you hear it so many times, I can understand that. Sometimes you wonder, where am I? Am I
they're going
back at the beginning?
Yeah, exactly. Responsibilities and wholesome, and you know, just
keywords. Everybody was
yeah,
going to wonder how
it's
people
weird.
interpret them.
And as you know, especially in my committee in Judiciary, that's all it is wordsmithing. But that's why you can see how people get angry with lawyers, because it's just interpretation. And if one guy's a better interpreter than the other one, doesn't necessarily mean it's even the right thing. I mean, it's strange.
But it's hard when people come up, well, that really means this. Oh, no, it doesn't.
Yeah, oh, no, it doesn't.
How can you, somebody has to, you can't cover all the bases. So hopefully this will get through. I mean, this is something that's really needed. And I know we're working the people. We had a county meeting today, and the people are telling you got to be there next Wednesday. So.
Well, that's what we're going to entice them with pizza.
Yeah.
And special guests.
Okay.
So we're pulling all the stops: balloons, dancing clowns. Get over we can get there. We should probably do a little civics lesson with this one. Is that for the people who aren't aware, there's in CACRs, which are constitutional amendments, you need 60% of the people to vote on it. So you people will all be getting it on the ballot, and those will be the 4 big ones that they'll get on.
And 60% of 400. Right.
Exactly. And then they'll have to do the same thing when they vote on it in November.
Right.
So it's a long process, and it's not even close to being over. But when I was talking to Senator Seidel earlier, she was the speaker. I didn't realize that the day that the Supreme Court decision came down. And she said that day that we need to get together legislation for a constitutional amendment. And here it is 15 years later, and it hasn't happened yet.
It's difficult. What's the second most hardest one out of the 4? That's going to be difficult to say.
Probably 26. I think that 6 and 13, 6 and 13 go together anyways. Yeah. It's just covering all the taxes.
Right.
26 is again, I don't want to say a trust thing, but people have a hard time grasping that, believing the court systems that need revamping, and I just think that one's going to be a little tough. I think it's a great one. I love it, because that came through our committee too. But it's going to be, again, you're going to see a blurb on a ballot, and tomorrow you're going to hear, Wednesday you're going to hear testimony, and we'll get to hear all that. But you're going to have every Democrat against it again, because they don't vote against the courts. So you'll never get Democrats to vote for 26. So there's 100 votes right there. So it's more of our liberal side of our caucus if we can sway them. Now, this is a pure libertarian bill, in the sense of the libertarians will love this, because it's really just keeping the court out of your face.
Right, yeah.
So that won't be a problem this time. It's going to be the moderates, so-called, as I like to call them, rhinos. Those will be the problem.
Well, we'll see how that goes. What else do we have on our agenda that's left before we close out? I mean, supposedly the 6th is the last session.
I did find from the speaker today, we are going to have the 27th will be veto day. 27th? Yeah. So you can put that in your calendar. Well, for bills, I mean, the one that I'm really looking at too is 289, which is voter ID. And for the people who aren't aware, we did reach a compromise. I think it's a very good compromise. I'm not sure if you heard it or not.
No, I haven't heard that.
So what's going to happen is this year, they still have to show ID, or they're going to ask for ID, that's the way I should say it. But if you say you don't have an ID, then they're going to keep it the way it was through this election. In effect, in January of next year,
will be the photograph.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that was where we were hanging up with the Senate, and some people aren't that happy with it, but it's better than nothing, and it's a lot better than nothing, because that's going to eliminate. It takes a lot of guts to show up
there
without ID and then still say, "All right,
I'm so and so."
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that'll deter people anyway.
Yeah. I think you're right.
It will. And then it goes into full effect the following year. So I think they did a really good job on that. And again, I learned my lesson. I almost was going for 100% with the bill I was involved in. It doesn't work.
No, you're right.
You got to give in a little bit.
A little bit, and hopefully you'll get a little bit more next time if this works right. And I think it will work right. I just hope we catch a few people who do try it.
Well, the thing that I'm baffled by with it is it's the clerks everyone's worried about. Now, I don't know why, if they're that powerful when it comes to elections, but everyone's talking about the clerks. The clerks they can't administer. It's too much work. It's, we can't do it in time, or all the things that they were hearing. But I say, so what? You're getting paid, do it.
It's these towns, and they have their way, and they've been doing it for 25 years that way, and they just don't want to change. But what I was happy to hear, and I think you have our Nashua City Town Clerk board. Isn't he aboard?
I heard he was. He didn't tell me specifically, but I'm pretty sure that he is. Yeah.
Because he's pretty fair, and I know if you register at Nashua City Hall, he goes through that process. And if he thinks he needs a citizenship papers, he asks for them.
Yeah,
so I think that's appropriate. It's I think if you're going to vote,
he's unique though.
Well, I might agree with you there. I'm happy he's here because it also kept our ward straight.
No,
and
everyone knows
fair.
He's a registered Democrat, but you never know talking to him.
Yeah.
He's completely nonpartisan when he
Right.
does his job.
And he does it well, and he has a good
He's a
staff
lot
there.
like, and they look alike a lot too, as Gardner.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's right.
Gardner, the same thing. I didn't think he would be for it, but he's for it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, they know they've had some problems, although some of them have sort of gone away, let's say. But every once in a while, they did catch somebody who did it illegally. They didn't prosecute him.
Well, this last primary, too, kind of spooked him a little bit, I think, with O'Keefe running around. And they're not going away.
That's right.
So, we're one of those high-profile states, being first in the nation. So no one wants to get caught from the government side. But it's crazy. You know yourself. You see the Massachusetts plates being in Nashua.
Oh, yeah. You worry about that, especially when you see a bus coming up.
Exactly.
What's this? This is supposed to be a nice little town. Everybody drives there or walks to the pool, but not have a whole bus come in.
Exactly.
That's something. Well, let me ask you another question, not about the agenda, but what are your plans for your organization now that you have the staff of the majority? What are you going to do with them?
Well, again, there's not a lot to do after next week. We will have to prepare for the vetoes, and what we'll have to do is I'm going to have to get people who want to volunteer over the summer to help recruit, and not so much recruit as prepare for the election, I should say. So we'll be doing things like that, just promoting our agenda and things that we did, and going around the state and doing those little town halls that we used to do. So when it comes time to vote.
Well, Nashua's going to have another victory hall, so that's going to be. I think it's in the same place, but right in that on Amherst Street. And so I know they'll have a lot of things there. Yeah, and that should be open sometime in June. They just have to close the papers, and actually. On June 2nd morning, they're opening the Bedford Victory, and they're going to have a little shindig up there. So I think that they're getting started. The staff is being put in place, and we have to get our house in order here to set up.
There's no
everything.
question.
Yeah.
That's one of the things. You have a Democratic Party where they have a chairman making six figures. Ours is volunteer. I don't understand some of the things like that, but in praise of Bill, here's a guy that's been everything. He doesn't have a real lot of support from the state party, and he was having troubles in the leadership office. So he's doing all of it, and I just think you'll see a change.
Well, good, because the team approach is what we really need.
That's right.
And the more you farm out some of the duties to people, the more people you have active on your team, and they get more people to join too. And I think that's, I'm glad to hear that, because I think that's what we need more of.
One thing I like to do is delegate. I don't have a problem with that. Pretty good delegator.
I do too. It's a little tough to find volunteers though, isn't it?
Sometimes they catch on, they run and hide, but most times I can find them.
Well, you're better than I am, because there's lots of things to do here, but I think people might be surprised. We want to get everybody organized and bring back the same or more Republicans in Nashua.
And I think that one of the things that I've been successful at doing is getting people to step up and do it. I wish I could do more with the Senate race, but I still believe in my message, or my observation, which will be my message. I just think that we need to get through them. I need to get through them. All of us that agree the same way need to get through them. That they see how the Democrats do it. And if you take voter ID, that, you were there, Carl. What do we have, 4, 5, 6 votes?
Yeah.
Every one of those votes was a roll call vote. And I got the results of every single one of them, and not one Democrat broke rank. Now, you can't tell me that that's not something that's weird. We could never do that as our party. And I don't want us to do that. I don't want to have sheep. But by the same token, you know, if you just have all lions eating each other, that doesn't work either.
That's right.
So they need to find, they need to understand, we need to spend more time explaining, not dictating, explaining to them that this is how it works. Have people tell the stories. Let them know, share the examples of what happened to them when they first came in. You know, even things like elections, you know, you and I went through this, I remember it was yesterday, our first term. We getting approached by all sides on who to vote for speaker.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's, you have to take a guess on it, but again, you find some people who can lead, and you'll get the majority of the people listening to them. And if we have little groups like that that just concentrate on just letting them know, look, here's the deal.
Yeah.
But when you isolate yourself and you don't let them approach you, then they make their own decisions. That's just common sense. And I just think that if more, you know, attention was paid to that.
I think you're right, and especially this year when we had so many new ones. Well, we had 140 new reps.
167.
167. 140 of them were Republicans.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. 140. There's a few retreads.
Yeah.
But most of them are green.
Right. And that led to some problems.
Well, like I said yesterday, if you, when you came in there,
yeah,
I remember standing next to you, and this is as sincere as I can be about the whole thing. I can remember we were doing our oath. I had tears in my eyes. I mean, that's an honorable thing to be where we're at, to stand in that hall with all those famous historic figures that walk the same floors as we do. And if you don't go there your first term with the attitude that you're going to change the world, you don't belong there to begin with. If you don't figure out after the first half of your first term that you're not quite going to do that, then you don't belong there either.
Yeah.
And so there's again compromise.
Yeah.
Somewhere in the middle is what you need to do.
Well, I think you're the person to do it. I'm glad that happened. That things are working out. What do you see anything else happening within the organization? The next, you know, you said that we have a summer to go through. I mean, July is completely closed, but then we have to start putting legislation together.
Yeah, and I think that what I'm going to encourage people to do so we don't get killed like this is to have, you know, I forget the early filing deadline. It's in.
There's an early one in September, and right after the election till almost the end of October.
So I'm going to try to get people to do a lot of work for the September one.
Yeah.
And hey, if you're not back there, so what? Someone will take
Somebody
the bill
will
and
pick it
run
up.
with it.
Yeah.
You can make arrangements to do that on whatever
right.
committee it goes to.
Yeah.
You know, some of the chairmen, you know, barring some major catastrophe, they'll be back anyway. They've been around for a while. I'm going to try to encourage that so we don't do. I'm going to also try to encourage some of these frivolous bills.
Oh, yeah.
It just makes us look bad. And you know what? I'm going to make examples of people. I wanted to do this in the beginning, and if people don't, if they want to take their whole party with them, and it's, you know, to make speed limits unlimited going down Main Street to prove a point, I'm not going to tolerate that. And I'm going to do it the best I can to let people know that, look, the party had nothing to do with this. We can't stop an individual, but they can do it. That's the beauty of our Constitution.
System, yeah.
But we can certainly discourage it. And you know, it's not funny anymore. You can't do things like that.
I think our speaker was a little too kind on some of those things. There were too many of those that took up a lot of time. But I'm also concerned, too, about sometimes the committees would vote one way and then we'd have a heck of a floor fight. And it was like, what happened with the committee? Why didn't they realize that?
I mean, facts are facts. If you look at without naming names, you can see the committees that had the problems. You know, you can see all the Senate messages that we've been concurring or not concurring, mostly concurring on. They're almost all of them are on the same committees. So that's a chair issue. And I think that going forward, not everyone's cut out to be a chair. And I think the speakers will learn by that. Now, that was their side. You know, in the majority side, we just, we didn't place the reps, the chairs, but you can just see. And it makes a huge difference. It's like a judge. The way the trial's going, if the judge just lets them do whatever they want to do, they'll do it. Go off, and they're going to do it. Or a teacher or anybody else.
You have to have a control.
You do.
You do have to have a control. And so maybe we ought to have a few classes for the chairs.
I think the chairs, they could do that, but I think that they did do some things, but I don't think there's ever enough education. The problem, I think, is will they listen to it? I have to tell you, early on, and I don't remember what I had for support on it, but early on I started doing, in the first term, I was offering, coming in early, doing these training seminars, just on parliamentary procedures and what happens, and when green means red and red means green and all this stuff. And first time there was maybe 25 people, maybe there was even more than that. But each time it just started going down. We did about 3 or 4 of them, and there was one time just no one showed up. So maybe it just was a boring class, but the freshmen organized, you know, they organized that freshman website that they have. And the thing that I don't agree with, even as freshmen, they should have sought out people to be involved instead of isolating them. Because you're learning, when you become a legislator, very few people were legislators before.
Have any experience
How would you be?
at all.
So you're going to go and do this traumatic thing of writing laws for the people of your state, but you know better than they do, so you just go do it on your own. That doesn't make any sense. And then you're also learning a whole new language, you know, to waltz your way through Mason.
The process,
I compared so much to my real job when I first got in medical sales. When I started going in the OR, there's no more left or right. It's medial lateral. There's no more front or back. It's anterior posterior. There's no more up and down. It's distal and proximal.
Whole new language.
A whole new language. And you think to yourself at first, well, you know, why don't you just say up or down, or, you know, why are you just trying to be cool? But no, you have to, because then it's universal. So everyone understands the same thing, what it means. And that's no different with this. I thought it was corny at first, you know, to sit there and raise your hand and ask a question, or, you know, more importantly, you ask a question to a witness, and then he gives the answer, and then there's a follow-up.
To follow up.
Like, well, let's just keep talking. But if you didn't do that, it would be a zoo. And I learned to, ironically, appreciate that. I think that's one of my favorite parts of being in the House, is the way we're able to keep such decorum in some really tense situations sometimes, from citizens, from one another. Most times with us, it's our own party, but it really does help.
No, I agree with you there. I am fortunate with the committee that I'm on, Public Works, is really an ideal committee for a starter, because we work well, Republicans and Democrats. The first 2 years as Democrat chairman, and second 2 now are the Republican chairman, and the majority of decisions are unanimous.
I've heard about your chairman several times, or your former chairman, how, you know, she's very reasonable to deal with, everything like that, until you mention the word abortion.
That's it. That's her big one. That's her big one.
Unreal. Unreal. It's the weirdest thing how someone can be that obsessed.
She's very strong on that, and
like if you asked me,
I had discussions with her on that particular subject. Yes, she wanted to, you know, she tried to get my vote on those bills the last session, and I said no. You know, I just don't see that at all.
Yeah, it's just strange.
I mean, you believe in life. That's You can't believe in abortion. And one of the things I'm hoping to do too is, while I turn this around a bit, is to look and work on the abortion, on the adoption laws, to make that more easy to do here in this state, because it's not that easy.
It's not, and as you know, I went through that process, but you're right. It's something we should look into. And I also, you know, there's been a lot with this whole redress thing that's come up, that in me being involved in a couple of cases personally. Unfortunately, for some of these people, there's no remedy of what they would
to solve their
problem,
yeah.
to solve their problem.
But
exactly.
other people will.
But maybe down the road they can.
That's right.
And the biggest one is we have to try to find a way to get subpoena power, so that we can subpoena these heads of the DCYF, subpoena some, you know, one of these family judges, if we had to, or marital masters, or whatever. That's mostly what it is that are involved in these things.
But I understand too, it's other areas too, not just the human services, health and human services.
Yeah, it's mostly the family court.
Yeah.
And that's the bulk of it, of how they, you know, they almost lead you to believe that, and there is government money, federal government money, for different services. So if you stop using those services, then they take it away. So they have quotas. They have things they have to do to, and it's just, when you start using kids and families and that stuff, I mean, I don't know that they ever did that, because we can't see the records.
Yeah.
So you can't.
You only hear one side of the story,
all, and that's all you see.
You really. I was on that group when it started.
That's right, you were.
And you know, that is a tough thing to hear too. To
Every one of them.
It's a sad situation. Every one of them come in and frustrated, but something that I think we're doing a good job. Well, Pete, we've run through 30 minutes here, and I think there's a good thing, but I'd like to do 30 more minutes in a couple weeks after we hear what happens to all those things you talked about, all those amendments, and whether there's any further developments in the staff or the objectives that you have. So if you agree to that, we'll have you back.
Love to come back, Carl.
All right. You're going to be a host anyway. But at least we're going to, I think it's going to work well in your position.
Well, thank you.
So this People's View is sponsored by the Nashua Republican Committee, City Committee, and we meet every Thursday, every second Thursday of the month at the Crown Plaza at 7 o'clock. Please join us. So we have a speaker. We have a website, NashuaGOP.org. And that'll tell you all the news you want to know about the program, and have a number of ties to events happening around the state. Thank you, and tune in again.